Early bird registration is now open for Fertility Awareness Mastery Live, and I know you'll love this program. Fertility Awareness Mastery is my 8-week group coaching program designed to help you gain confidence using fertility awareness. Whether you're actively avoiding pregnancy or looking to optimize your cycles for conception, we have a spot for you. We start the first week of May. Will you be joining us? Head over to fertilityfriday.com/FAM, as in Fertility Awareness Mastery, FAM, to register today. That's fertilityfriday.com/FAM. Today's episode is brought to you by Conceiving with Fertility Awareness, a free online course designed to help you utilize fertility awareness strategies to optimize your chances of conceiving naturally. From timing sex accurately every time to identifying potential fertility issues through charting, this course has you covered. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/TTC for access. TTC as in trying to conceive. Again, that's fertilityfriday.com/TTC. This is the Fertility Friday podcast, episode number 302. Welcome to the Fertility Friday podcast, your source for information about the fertility awareness method and all things fertility. I'm your host, Lisa Hendrickson-Jack. I'm the author of The Fifth Vital Sign and the Fertility Awareness Mastery Charting Journal. I'm a certified fertility awareness educator and holistic reproductive health practitioner with nearly 20 years of experience teaching women to connect to their fifth vital sign through menstrual cycle charting, balancing hormonal health, and optimizing the menstrual cycle without hormones. I'm outspoken about hormonal birth control and its impact on fertility and overall health because you have the right to know how your body works and how artificial hormones disrupt that natural process. I host live coaching programs to help you achieve optimal fertility and health because it's important to have healthy menstrual cycles regardless of whether or not you want to have babies. I'm also a wife and mother of 2 beautiful boys. I know, I'm a busy girl, but I managed to fit it all in. This podcast is designed to empower you to take full control of your cycles, your fertility, and your overall health. And I'm so excited that you're here with us today. Today, I'm sharing my interview with Dr. Ben Lynch. We are talking about his new book, Dirty Genes, and it's a really interesting conversation that we have. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I had after reading the book is that although our genes do play a significant role in how we experience different health challenges, they're not the only answer, because whether you have a certain genetic situation or not, you can still experience some of those challenges depending on how you're living your life and the different lifestyle factors that you're exposing yourself to. So really eye-opening, really great conversation. Without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. And I'm really excited to be here today with Dr. Ben Lynch. He is the best-selling author of Dirty Genes and a leader in the field of nutrigenomics. He's also president of Seeking Health, an innovative company providing supplements, courses, and tools designed to help people overcome genetic dysfunction and optimize health. After earning his Bachelor of Science in Cell and Molecular Biology from the University of Washington, he then obtained a Doctorate of Naturopathic Medicine from Bastyr University, where he now serves on the Board of Trustees. And in today's podcast episode, we're going to be talking about Mthfr and other genetic issues that can contribute to fertility problems and so much more. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Ben.
Awesome to be here, Lisa.
Well, I'm really excited to have you. As I was sharing in the pre-chat, I had a chance to read your book before our podcast interview, and there's just so much to get into. Before we get into all the topics, I usually ask my guests what brought them into this field. So I'm curious, what brought you into naturopathic medicine, but more so what made you focus on the genetic part of it?
Yeah, I'm a very inquisitive person by nature, and I was probably one of those annoying little kids, who's always asking the question, why, Dad, why, Mom, why, and it led me down this path, but it all originally started when we get sick individually, we seek help, and I sought conventional methods for various issues, and they basically failed me every single time. I had chronic nosebleeds as a kid. I don't think I've told this story. And then they shoved silver nitrate in my nose, and it hurt like crazy. And now I know I was related to my MTHFR and my histamine issues. And then when I was joining the rowing team at the University of Washington, I remember they were doing a physical exam on me, and they checked my blood pressure. It was like 150/92, and I'm 19 years old. Wow. And they're like, what the heck? Are you drinking coffee? Are you stressed out? I'm like, no, I'm fine. And I felt fine, but I wasn't fine. Again, there's the genetic component. And so just all these things were failing me in my life. And so I once you start understanding that these things are reversible and you can be in control of them, you have to get the word out. So now I'm just on a mission that, I've learned all these things through trial and error in my own health and patients' health and clients' health, my own family's health. And I feel that I know enough to help a lot of people. And I just want to continue knowing more, because we will never, ever know more at all, but we at some point know enough to help a lot of people. Now I'm really, really shifting my focus towards fertility and optimizing the lives of unborn children, because the more I read, Lisa, the more I shudder at truly understanding that most of our future generations' problems are occurring in the womb as they're developing. So we have to optimize pregnancies.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. One of the things that surprised me when I was reading Dirty Genes, a couple of things. One was that at times I felt like you were in my mind. I was like, how does he know? So there was one of the components of the book, you had checklists, but you also just the way that you write and talk. I think what surprised me was the emotional aspects of it, how you feel, just how you respond to different situations and how your genes could be related to that. And also, I thought there would be, you talk about MTHFR, which my audience is likely familiar with. I did a past episode with Diane Ketty about it, and it's been one of the most downloaded. But I think what surprised me also is you went through several genes, I'll just say, and how each of them can have a different effect. And in many ways, it's very simple to understand, but in many ways, it's very complicated, because to understand each of these genes and then how they could interact with each other. Yes. And how they could cause a range of different challenges or not.
Right.
So, I think a good place to start would be just for you to talk a little bit about dirty genes, in the sense of the impression that I got was that you can have an actual issue or not, but the environment can cause an issue regardless. That's kind of the impression that I got.
Nailed it. And as I describe in the book, you can be born with what you call dirty genes. And these dirty genes, first let's define a dirty gene. A dirty gene is a gene that is not functioning at its best. So let's start there. And then there's a number of ways you can acquire a dirty gene, but let's say you can be born with them. So let's say you inherit a genetic defect or genetic variant or a mutation, whatever you want to call it, from your mom or your dad. And you're born with that. Let's say you're born with a genetic variation like MTHFR that has really slowed your MTHFR down and it's dirtied it. Or on the flip side, you could be born without any MTHFR variants. Let's say it's homozygous, and it's not homozygous. It's natural and wild type and no variants found. And you look at that and you're like, oh, that's cool. I don't have MTHFR. But yet you have high homocysteine, you have cardiovascular issues in your family, and you're just wondering what the heck's going on. And then you do labs and your homocysteine's high, and you have migraines all the time, and you look at your diet and no, you don't eat leafy green vegetables. They suck. You're not into that. And then you do organic acids test and you're like, yeah, my riboflavin is really deficient. And so now your MTHFR got dirty. And then you've been told by a doctor to take a bunch of folic acid instead of the activated folates, and now you've made it worse. So and a lot of people, this is a very important point, Lisa, and I'm glad you started with that, is a lot of people will do genetic testing, and they'll get their genetic test back, and they're like, oh, phew, I don't have MTHFR, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. But yet, they might be the sickest people. And I like to give a story, and let's say Sam walks into my office, and he walks in all proud and throws down his genetic report on my table, and he goes, look, doc, I have perfect genes. And then I said, okay, that's cool. I said, well, then explain why your chart's 2 inches thick and you have all these signs and symptoms. So,
Yeah, I think that was one of the kind of main topics or themes that really struck me because I think that when understanding these genetic issues, it's like you're trying to find out if you have one and you wonder if you have one because you think that's going to make the difference between whether or not you are going to be sick. But it's very possible that your genes could look totally clean, but the environment, the way that you're living could dirty them. And to be honest, when I first heard the title of your book, Dirty Genes, I kind of thought, oh my goodness, like that's kind of putting it in a negative light. And as I read your book, I understood what you meant. And it makes perfect sense because what you're doing is basically mucking it up.
yeah. Have you ever heard about the design cover?
Oh, no.
Look at it.
Got it right here.
Okay. So what do you see? Imagine that's like the hood of your car or a window.
Nice. So half of it is muddied and dirty and half of it is clean. I
That's right.
see. Brilliant.
So my wife came up with that concept where, because the first rendition of the cover of the book was these bites taken out of every letter. So the letters of Dirty Genes were broken. I was like, no, that's not repairable. That's not my point. I said that you need to make the cover look like these genes are dirty, but you can clean them up. And my wife said, well, just imagine a table that's dusty and then you wipe it off. I said, that's beautiful. Let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Well, let's start with MTHFR for the audience members who don't know what that is and who think it just sounds like a swear word, because it does. But could you tell us kind of just the basics of it and how it could impact fertility? That might be a good place to start.
Yeah. So a lot of genes have acronyms for very good reasons. A lot of things, that are long have abbreviations and become acronyms. So MTHFR is just a long, gene name that's shortened into, these letters. And we have about 18,000 different genes in our human body, which is amazing. And they all have different functions. They all have different jobs. So I like informing people and letting them know that genes have work to do and they have certain tasks and they need the right tools to do the job. And they also get tired and need rest and vacations and holidays. And so the job of MTHFR is to make your body's number one form of folate in your blood, and which then gets into your brain and supports your neurotransmitters and all these other things. So if MTHFR's job is to make your body's number one form of folate, you're thinking, well, that's interesting. I can just take folic acid, or I can just eat leafy green vegetables or anything else that has folate, like liver. If you so choose to eat liver, I'm trying to get brave more to eat that, but I just the smell of it. Ugh. My wife likes it, but MTHFR's job is to make that type of folate, and it's what your body uses. So 80% of your body's folate in your blood is consisting of a type of folate called methylfolate. So it's not methylfolic acid, it's methylfolate. And if you look at methylfolate in terms of the chemical structure and you look at folic acid, they almost look exactly the same. The only difference is a methyl group. And the whole reason why the RDA of pregnancy in prenatal vitamins for folate goes from 400 micrograms to 800 micrograms, so it doubles, is because you're growing a brand new organ, a placenta, you're developing a baby, and you're supporting your own health. And so you have to have a whole bunch of that folate, and that folate supports a huge process in the human body, especially during pregnancy, called methylation. So there's that methyl word again. So MTHFR supports the production of methylfolate, which then supports methylation. And if you break the word methylation apart, ation is like an action, procrastination, inflammation. These things are actions. And methyl, so it's the act of applying a methyl group onto something. And so with methylfolate, you're balancing your homocysteine levels, which is really, really important during pregnancies. You're helping produce phosphatidylcholine for your cell membranes, for you, your baby, and your placenta. You're helping make creatine for your baby, yourself, and your muscles, and so on. So there's a lot to it, and in order for MTHFR to function properly, it does not want to have folic acid around. That slows it down. and it makes it dirty. You need to also have sufficient vitamin B2, riboflavin. And I don't know if I talk about that enough, but riboflavin is really, really important. And if you look at the research on riboflavin, it works just as well as drugs that lower blood pressure, which is pretty cool. And when you look at that, it's like, well, how does that work? Well, riboflavin supports Mthfr, which then lowers homocysteine, and high homocysteine causes blood pressure to go up. And you lower the homocysteine, blood pressure goes down. And that's what happened to me. Because I have a really dirty Mthfr. I was born with it, and my lifestyle made it even worse. And then I got high blood pressure at 19.
Wow. That is pretty profound. Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of, who knows how many people are struggling with high blood pressure for whom this could be an issue.
Heaps.
I think,
and to let you know now, my blood pressure is like 110 over 70, 110 over 65, and I'm on no meds at all. None.
Yeah, that's powerful. I was thinking one of the ways to better understand how something works is to understand what happens when it doesn't. And as I was looking through, I made a couple notes, but as I was looking through the section, you mentioned some of the issues that can happen if somebody has, say, a dirty MTHFR when they're pregnant. And there was a list of birth defects, all the worst ones that we've heard of, including anencephaly, cleft palate, congenital heart defects, spina bifida, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple. So can you just, you covered it a bit, but can you go a little bit deeper into the role of this process in making babies?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're making something, even if you're making a salad at home or you're making cookies or, you're making plans to get from Seattle to go to, to Portland, Oregon, on a road trip, there's all these steps involved. And, developing a baby, there's bazillion steps involved. And if you are deficient in any one of those steps, something's going to go wrong. Or if it's not going to go wrong, it's not going to go as well. You might go from Seattle to Portland, but maybe you left at the wrong time and it's horrible traffic, and then you get frustrated and start arguing with your significant other, or your kids in the back start fighting. So you make it, but it's just not ideal. So we need to start thinking that I believe I too take our bodies for granted. And you think, oh, I got pregnant, check. Check. Now I've got 9 months to go until this little stinker pops out, and then I'm good. And check, done. But those 9 months are a plethora of things that can go wrong and go beautifully right. And it requires a huge symphony of beautiful steps to happen that we still have no idea of what they are. But we do know core nutrients that are needed, and core chemicals and compounds and stressors and hormone imbalances and medications and vaccines that can fluff this process up, mess it up. So I just really want people to understand that it's a multitude of steps, and we need to really respect it every single day, respect it, and support it as much as we can. And ladies, I really want you to lean on your significant others, your older kids, friends, family, your coworkers, your bosses, and even yourself to take more time out while you're pregnant. Because if you don't, that's putting more work on your genes, which is requiring more nutrient utilization, which then leads to, more potential problems.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier folic acid. So, I think a lot of my listeners are familiar with this, but obviously folic acid is the thing, and we're supposed to take it, and it's in everything. I'm not even sure if people realize how many things it's just in, but you mentioned that folic acid can dirty our genes. So did you want to expand on that?
I do. And, if you are on Instagram, I highly recommend, obviously a little self-bias here, but Dr. Ben Lynch is my Instagram. And I write things about current research findings, stuff that's going on with my family and myself, and things that I hear about, and sometimes funny things. But there was something I recently posted about folic acid, and it was interesting because this is a paper that was published in 2020, this year, and it said that folic acid is actually not helping neural tube defects. neural tube defects were actually declining when folic acid was introduced in the population, in the foods of the population. So if you take that into effect and you actually look really hard at the statistics and the numbers, folic acid is not helping reverse neural tube defects at all. Wow. And that was such a huge, monumental paper. I was like, this is amazing. I posted it. That only got like 200 likes. I was like, come on, people.
Post a cat photo or something and you'll get
Yeah, exactly. Cat doing backflips, knocking over a bottle of folic acid. They probably get a lot. But folic acid, let me say this about it. When it was first identified when folate was first identified a long time ago, and folate comes from the word foliage. So hear that, right? Foliage is green stuff, which contains folate, but also organ meats as well. And so, where was I track? Oh, so folate was identified, and they started commercializing food many years ago. And they started realizing that women were having kids with congenital heart defects, neural tube defects, and spina bifida, and miscarrying, and preeclampsia, and all these things. They're like, well, what's going on? It's like, well, you idiots, you took whole grain food and you stripped it down of its nutrient value so it could sit on the shelf longer to support commercial businesses and stability of the commodity at the expense of our own health. So instead of saying, you know what, hold on, let's stop stripping nutrients out of food. We'll keep the bran on there and the husk and all that, so the B vitamins will stay, the natural folates will stay. No, that's not what they did. They synthesized the vitamins in a lab, and they added it to the processed flours to try to compensate and fix the problem. And it apparently did seem to help. But again, folic acid does not have the methyl group. And in order to put that simple methyl group back onto the folic acid, it's a long process. And if you have genetic variations, you can't do it. You just can't. And so, folic acid did its job, but now people are driving Teslas now. They're not going down the street in horses and buggies. So I don't see anyone around here. I mean, maybe the Amish are still cruising in their horse and buggies, which is cool. That's their choice. But a lot of us want to get from point A to point B faster and in a healthier way with seat belts and so on. And so we try to drive, safer cars. And safer types of folate are available, and folic acid is not safe anymore. It needs to go away. And not enough people are talking about it. And I think public health wants to talk about it, but I think they're kind of stuck because it was like, we recommended it for so long. Now, how are we going to tell people not to take it? And we made a wrong decision. You didn't make a wrong decision. There's just something better out now.
Yeah. I could see that being maybe them trying to slip it in as opposed to just outright addressing the fact that it could potentially do more harm than good. So maybe share with us then, what are some of the harms? So for the listener who doesn't understand or who's never really heard of this, or for whom this is new information, if you have the genetic variant, or even if you don't, how does folic acid, like what harm does it do?
Yeah, so a lot of people think that, since I have this Mthfr gene, and the Mthfr gene's job is to make my primary form of folate methylfolate, and if I take folic acid, I'll slow that one particular gene down, so that's bad. I shouldn't take folic acid. So if you're slowing your body's ability to make your primary folate that your body uses, it's not a good thing, right? So you can't do that. So that's bad for Mthfr. But what really got me to understand more about this, Lisa, was understanding that the problem of folic acid affects all humans, regardless of genetic variation. And why is that? It's because when they were studying the safety of folic acid before they put it in food, they tested it on mice. Okay? They didn't test it on humans, which is understandable. They tested it on mice. The mice have this particular gene, as humans, called DHFR, another abbreviation for a long word of dihydrofolate reductase. So it reduces the type of folate. And so they gave folic acid to these mice to see if their genes could process it and turn it into the body's good form of folate called methylfolate. That's what it needs to turn into. Folic acid by itself has no physiological effect on the human body. Zero. There's no jobs for folic acid. None. It has to be transformed. So it's like, you get flour in a bag from the grocery store and you give it to your kid and here's a cookie. And you're like, Mom, that's a bag of flour. I'm not touching that. So that's what folic acid is. It's nothing. It has to be turned into something. And so the first gene that folic acid hits in order to be transformed is this gene DHFR. In mice, right through, no problem. Good to go. Humans, 200 times slower.
Wow.
And 40% of humans, almost half the human population, has genetic variations in the DHFR gene that reduce it even more. So we're not talking, I know MTHFR gets all the glory. I'm partly to blame for that. But as I was researching and I learned new genes, you have to start somewhere. MTHFR had the most research, the most data, the most significant impact, the easiest to support. And then as you're learning, you start realizing all these other genes are really important too. And so DHFR is super important, and our bodies, our human bodies, cannot process folic acid very well. 120 micrograms, I think, or is it 220? No, it's 220. 220 micrograms, half of the RDA of 400 micrograms of folic acid per day. So 220 can get through. Anything more than 220, the DHFR genes just puts its hand up in despair and says, I can't handle it. So then what happens? That folic acid stays as folic acid, and you're like, so what? But a lot of people also think if you swallow a vitamin, it does what it needs to do. No. A lot of these vitamins have to get inside your cell in order to do the job. So folate has to be transported by certain proteins, has to be carried by proteins, and then it has to be bound to a receptor in order to get in the cell so it can do its job. So what folic acid does is it binds to these folate transport proteins and the folate receptors better than methylfolate.
Great.
So now you're gumming up these genes that are supposed to carry your body's good form of folate, and your good folate can't get in your cell, and now you're walking around stupid with brain fog, mommy brain, and your kids are struggling in school with ADD, can't fall asleep, mood swings, cancer is increasing, and you're like, what's going on? Well, you pull folic acid from their diet or out of their supplements, you clean that up. Now the folate binding proteins can carry active folate from their food or better supplementation, get in the cell. Now the cell can do its job and function better. So it's what's called functionally folate deficient. And it's super powerful stuff. And if you're hearing this, I really want you to go into your cupboard right now. And I don't care what your doctor says. I don't care if they're like the top doctor in the Mayo Clinic or a top naturopath. I don't care. They're wrong. They've got to stop using folic acid. You have to stop using folic acid and eliminate enriched types of foods like cereals and energy drinks and so on that contain this stuff. If you consume a bit of enriched noodles or something in a meal at a restaurant, it's not going to kill you. It's fine. The folic acid will get out of your blood in about 3 to 5 days or faster, but you just don't want to be on it all the time. So minimize your exposure.
I have a question about when you said functionally deficient. So does that mean that if you had a blood draw, it would show that you have this high level of folic acid?
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes. So what happens is you go to the doctor and they test your blood and you look at serum folate. Serum folate is this huge bowl of stuff. It's your folic acid, it's your methylfolate, it's your folic acid, it's just whatever type of folate in a big ball. You don't know. You don't know if it's folic acid, you don't know if it's methylfolate, you have no clue. And you make a phone call to the lab and you say, hey, are you guys testing folic acid or methylfolate? And they'll be all confused. They have no idea what you're talking about. And they'll say, oh, we're just checking folate. Folic acid is folate. No. And you ask your doctor, Doc, what's serum folate measuring? Like, idiot, folate. Well, is it checking folic acid or methylfolate? And they'll look at you all confused and may lie about, a response. Either they say, I don't know, and that's a good doctor, or I'll ask. But labs even don't know what they're testing, which is scary. So there are good labs out there now. Doctors Data is offering a folate test that looks at all these different types of folate, and you can figure it out. But your question is spot on, because what happens is doctors will order a serum folate test, serum folate, which is in your blood. It's not in your cell. So if your serum folate levels are high, that gives you the impression, oh, my folates are good. No, they're not. And I talk about this a bit in the book as well. And a diagram would really help here. If you can have a high amount of something, if you don't have something else that's needed. So folate, methylfolate needs methylcobalamin. Folate needs vitamin B12. So if you could have a high serum folate because of a low vitamin B12. You could also have a high serum folate because you're taking folic acid and it's not doing anything. It's falsely elevated. Another reason for high serum folate is you could have SIBO. You could have a lot of bacteria in your gut producing folates, which then they make all this in your microbiome and it gets absorbed in your blood, and then it can affect your lab values. B12 is another one. So if your serum B12 and your serum folates are high, it could be supplementation. It could be the wrong type of supplements you're taking. It could be just, it is high. It could be the microbiome. There's a lot of factors at play here. But look at your MCV, MCH. And if your MCV and MCH on your lab are high, meaning like all the way up normal, like at the high end, then you are truly folate or B12 or both deficient. So that's like a folate or B12 anemia. So, that's high MCV, high MCH. And ladies, you got to know that when you're pregnant.
Well, so what's interesting about even right now, in addition to your book, is that this stuff is really complicated in many ways. But what I appreciated about the way that you structured your book was that you provided the information, you went through everything in detail, but throughout the book, you kept saying, like, this is not an opportunity to just go out and take all the supplements right now, because although it sounds very, very complicated, the first step from what we've talked about would be to identify what contains folic acid, i.e. everything processed, stop eating it before you even think about the supplementation part. Am I
100%. Yeah, you have to know where you are, what your normal baseline is. I had a gentleman message me, and he was just, he showed me his strategy report, and he's very prone to anxiety. He has a slow COMT, has a slow MAO-A, and he has a very dirty Mthfr. I mean, ripe genes for anxiety attacks. And I was like, you are programmed to have these anxiety attacks. And he goes, yeah, I'm taking all these supplements to try to fix it. And I said, your genes are so sensitive that if you take methylfolate, it's going to cause anxiety. If you take lithium, might depress you. And he goes, yeah, that's what I'm feeling like. I'm feeling like I'm just yo-yo. One day I'll feel great, and then I'll anxious, and then I'll try to supplement the anxiety. Then I'm depressed, and I take supplements. And now I'm anxious. I said, your genes are they're very, very susceptible to what you are consuming. So your genes have to be following the fundamentals. You have to be eating the right foods. You have to be starting your day with protein when you start eating, not carbs. You have to breathe. You have to sleep on time. You have to be in relationships that are healthy for you and get rid of the toxic ones. You have to practice the fundamentals, because supplements for you are not the answer. So, and so many people lean on supplements because they think they can supplement their way out of a crappy lifestyle or a crappy diet. And my kids and myself, I do the same. And, sometimes it works, but oftentimes it doesn't. And pregnancy is a time where you don't want to play that cat and mouse game, because you're affecting not only the safety of your own health during the pregnancy, because ladies, I've heard over and over again that, oh, my health has never been the same since I was pregnant, or I had to have my gallbladder emergency removed during pregnancy, and that was a nightmare, and I can't even imagine that happening. Or I had to be in bed rest for 3 months because I was placenta previa and all these things, and so my kid was born with a congenital heart defect, and it just made me feel so stressed out, and my kid became autistic, or all these things. So it really, really is important that you take all the necessary steps that you can. And life is busy. I get it. And you can't beat yourself up for it either. But as Lisa said, you got to practice the fundamentals.
I wanted to jump into today's episode with Ben to invite you to join us for the next round of Fertility Awareness Mastery Live. This 8-week group coaching program is designed to help you unlock the secrets of your menstrual cycle. Fertility Awareness Mastery teaches you everything you need to know about using fertility awareness cycle tracking to achieve your intentions, whether you're currently trying to get pregnant, avoiding pregnancy, or planning to conceive in the future. We've got you covered. This program goes deep. Get to the root of your period problems, hormone imbalances, fertility challenges, and so much more. But don't wait too long. Early bird registration is now open, but only for a limited time. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/FAM, FAM, to register today. That's fertilityfriday.com/FAM. Now let's go ahead and jump back into today's episode. Well, I want to talk a little bit about fertility specifically, and I think we've kind of gone over some of it, but especially for women who are trying to conceive, for whom it's not happening, I'd love to hear how genes could, what would be the signs to know if this could be related to an issue with genes, and I also kind of the female side as well as the male side.
Yeah, in fact, male side is a big one. Half of cases of infertility are due to men. It's so ladies aren't alone with this one at all. Sperm morphology and sperm health are just in huge danger right now from all the plastics, the phthalates in the environment. That's the primary one, is all the phthalates everywhere. Shaving cream, guys or wives or partners, don't let your man use shaving cream. That's full of phthalates, that nice, smooth, silky consistency. That's riddled with phthalates. They got to stop using that stuff.
Can I just interject for a second? Sorry. I just bought a razor. It's been a while. And the razor itself I'm sure it had phthalates on it because the razor itself left a film on my body. I had to throw it away immediately.
That's a great point. My razor has that strip on it too. And when it goes down, you think, oh, it's time to throw it away and replace the phthalate. So that's a really good question. I wonder what's on those razors. Here I am thinking I'm doing myself good, not using shaving cream, but I'm still wiping my face full of phthalates. But yeah, sperm is a big one. And so plastics have got to be eliminated. Plastic containers in your home. And ladies, this affects you too. High estrogens, the estrogen progesterone balance, you've got to have that good. And, high estrogens can lead to PCOS and a lot of other things. And PCOS is highly related to pregnancy complications and gestational diabetes and so on. These things have to be monitored. So I would say, give me your question again, Lisa, so you point me direct on track. Okay. Fertility is a huge one.
Yeah, it's a big one. I would say that a lot of my listeners are kind of familiar with MTHFR in the sense that they know it could affect them. When you learn about MTHFR and how it could contribute to recurrent miscarriages, pregnancy losses, etc. Yep. But no one's really thinking, could this be related to my partner, or could it be affecting his sperm?
Yeah. So again, let's think of the jobs our genes do. That always makes things a lot easier when you think of it as simple concepts. MTHFR's job, make methylfolate. All right, what's methylfolate do? Supports methylation. So what? What's that do? It keeps your homocysteine levels healthy. Who cares? What happens if my homocysteine levels are too high? Higher histamine. All right, so what? What's that? What's the big deal there? Well, higher histamine in pregnancy, I found this paper, again, I put this on my Instagram, leads to every pregnancy complication you can imagine. All of them. Every single one. And I was like, why didn't I learn any of that in med school? Why did I only learn about that 6 months ago? That's wrong. And so if you have MTHFR variants, the likelihood of your histamine being high is up there. Now, as you were saying, Lisa, as you read the book and you start putting the genes together, then you're like, oh, it can get really dirty really fast, really messy really fast. Well, let's get really dirty fast. So MTHFR can lead to high homocysteine, which then can reduce your ability to make healthy cell membranes because it dirties your PEMT gene. If you have a dirty PEMT gene, as I discussed in the book, your gallbladder isn't working. How many women during pregnancy have gallbladder issues or intolerance to fat or take fish oil and burp or have gallstones after and have to have their gallbladder removed? I know some of you are shaking your head and are like, oh my God, that's me. or you're not pregnant yet. It's like, how do I resolve that? Well, not only do you support your Mthfr gene and keep it clean, but you support your PEMT gene to keep it clean. So bile requires a lot of methylation in order to run smoothly out of a little tiny pinhole where your bile comes through. And if your bile is thick, it can't get through, and the bile is needed to keep the microbiome at peace. SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Bile is antimicrobial, and the bile dumps in your small intestine and kills it.
So if it can't get out, then it can't kill the bacteria, and you end
up with overgrowth? That's right. And phosphatidylcholine is this long fancy word that is used to make a lot of your bile, and it takes the majority, it's the main component of your cell membranes, which includes your placenta. So if you've had a prior pregnancy, and you know how the doctors lay the placenta out and they look at it, the good ones do, they look at it like, wow, this is it's so pink and lush and looks super healthy. Or the other one is, ooh, this is really dried out, there's crystallized, there's hard vessels in here, there's calcifications, and you're like, oh, okay, what's going on with that? So you've got to have healthy cell membranes. And phosphatidylcholine uses almost 80% of your methyl groups in your body, 80%. So if you are supplementing with folic acid during pregnancy, thinking you're doing the good job, because that's what you're told, it's not your fault, it's society's fault. And so if you had a prior miscarriage or prior infertility or have current infertility issues, then the doctor says, okay, we'll put you on 4 milligrams of folic acid. That will fix the problem. That just makes it worse.
Giving you a mega dose.
So, yeah. And so, it gets really complicated really fast. But I'm going to throw a few things out here, a few scenarios. And these genes are discussed in the book. So if you feel lost, don't worry about it. It's all explained in the book, and you can put it all together in your own time, and you can get the Audible version too and listen to it while you're driving kids around. I'm going to give you a few examples just to give you an idea of how complicated and complex it can be. So Mthfr, again, makes your methylfolate to support homocysteine. That's one dirty gene. Let's say you got born with a dirty PEMT gene. Okay, that's making your gallbladder a problem. It's making your placenta development a problem, making your baby's skin health and their brain a problem. So what if you have a dirty Mthfr and a dirty PEMT, which is very common, very common. 90% of pregnant women are deficient in choline, 90. So that is massive. And so that's one. So now let's say that you are concerned about blood flow to the baby, or you've had clotting risks or miscarriages, and you're trying to figure it out. It's like, oh, I think it's because I'm clotting. Well, if you have the Mthfr gene, you could clot. If you have the Mthfr gene combined with the dirty NOS3 gene, that's even a higher risk for clotting. Now, if you add another one to that, a dirty GST gene, as I discussed in the book, that's even higher risk. So now you're starting getting into the picture. It's like, wow, he's talked about all these genes. If Dirty Genes is not a pregnancy book, but if you clean your genes and these are all working well, you're probably going to have a high chance of having a very successful pregnancy, because these genes do the fundamental processes in your life. And if you have cold hands and feet right now, so feel your hands. How are they? If your hands are cold, you have a dirty NOS3. That's it. And if you're mouth breathing right now, how's your mouth? You're breathing through your nose, or you're breathing through your mouth, or you're holding your breath because you're focusing on something else and you're not breathing. I do that too. So if your hands are cold, that's a dirty NOS3. If you slow your breathing down and calm down, you can warm your hands up in seconds. Mm. And that's blood flow to your hands. And if your feet are cold, hands and feet are happening to you right now, and you're pregnant, well, how much blood flow is getting to baby? So don't panic. Just start focusing your thoughts. It's like, okay, if my hands are cold right now, my baby's cold. And let's warm up baby right now. Let's slow my breathing down and, focus on it and concentrate and meditate or whatever you need to do to warm up your hands. Mm-hmm. And nose breathe, not mouth breathe.
Yes, there's a lot there.
Yes, a ton.
There's enough for a lot. There was the COMT gene.
We have not.
No, we won't be able to go into all that today, but I just want to let you know.
And the DAO gene.
And the DAO. So the COMT, When I was reading that, I really resonated with that because I do have fibroids. They were detected when I was like 20 at my request because it was in my family. But a lot of the things that you mentioned there make sense. The slow one. Just because of all of the estrogen related issues and because I work in menstrual cycles, a lot of the women that I see have similar issues with PMS or with heavy bleeding or light bleeding or, kind of on the flip side as well. The DAO would probably be a subject for its own podcast because a lot of women have issues with allergies and that was associated with histamines. So it's fascinating how these genes can really affect you. And how not only can they affect these health issues, but they can affect your moods, they can affect your cravings, they can affect how you kind of relate in the world. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's super powerful because nobody's taught us this stuff. And when you're able to actually peek under the hood, I mean, when you take your clothes off, all you see is skin. You cut yourself, you see blood, and you look at an X-ray, you see blurred images. It doesn't make any sense. But when you start understanding how your body works and what symptoms are associated when something is broken, and you know how to fix whatever that's broken to reverse those symptoms, it becomes super powerful. And when you start understanding that, bipolar is actually not bipolar, it's just imbalanced neurotransmitters. When you think that miscarriage isn't labeled miscarriage, it's actually, our high histamine or reduced blood flow, or maybe I wasn't healthy enough to have a pregnancy. And so it was my body's way of saying, you're not ready to be pregnant right now, because if you had this baby, you'd be dead. So some women are so depleted that they think they want to get pregnant. They do want to get pregnant, but their body can't handle that huge load. It can't. And so they miscarry. So it could be just a protective mechanism too. So your body is telling you. In fact, that was my Instagram post today. What did I say on that one? It was very simple. You feeling off is your body asking for help.
I saw that. Yeah. I mean, before I want to finish with the good news, what we can do. And before we go there, I just want you to touch on how this could affect men in fertility, how it could affect their sperm production.
Yeah, great point. And, I'm still learning about, it's like, why does it matter how the men's sperm is for the developing baby? I mean, really, it's, the baby's in mom for 9 months. The sperm swim and they touch the egg and their job's done, right? That's it.
Unless they can't get there in the first place, which is kind of my department.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'll just paint the picture for you for like in my world for a minute. So I'm working with women, helping them to understand their cycles. They're charting their cervical fluid so they know when to time sex. Mm-hmm. And they're hitting it every cycle after cycle, perfect timing. And it's not happening.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
When they finally get their partner's sperm analyzed, the quality is super low and they're kind of left not knowing what to do because their doctor actually looks at the same analysis and says, oh, it's totally normal.
Yeah.
So that's how it looks from my perspective.
Right. And then they promote IVF.
Yeah.
And off you go.
The solution to male infertility is IVF.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's male infertility, if its sperm count is low and sperm morphology is bad, it's actually pretty easy to fix. It's pretty easy. And I've been researching this for quite some time now because I'm 46 and my testosterone levels as men over the age of 35 and up, you lose about, your testosterone levels drop about 1% a year. So, and men whose sperm isn't very healthy, their testosterone levels aren't very good. And so that's a problem. So they got to get their testosterone levels up. And not only that, their mitochondrial health is bad because the tail of the sperm is where the energy is. And that tail has to have enough energy to swim up the canal to touch the egg and to deliver the DNA. And if it can't do that, then it dies before it reaches the egg. So it's okay, how do men support the mitochondria? Well, they got to reduce their carb intake. They got to stop drinking alcohol. I know it's just a touchy subject. I posted this too. There was studies that showed men who are persistent users of marijuana have a poor sperm count. Occasional use, they didn't find anything. But chronic, persistent use it was a problem. And, I voted to legalize marijuana. I think marijuana is a great thing. I don't use it, but, I'm not bashing it. I'm just saying, be aware. And another one is toxicity of the environment is everywhere. Guys spraying themselves with cologne and, deodorant and aftershave and driving new cars with all those chemicals. The glutathione levels could be really low. So just men could take a simple multivitamin with additional glutathione, which is body's primary antioxidant, with additional carnitine, and cut back on the carbohydrate intake, cut back on the stressors, cut back on the alcohol, cut back on the pot usage, and lift some weights. High intensity workouts are the best. Not running 10 miles or biking 10 miles, but I'm talking like 30-second sprints or fast types of workouts that are just all out. And it's tough when a man has low testosterone to do that because they're not motivated to do it. So then you can take various herbs to help your testosterone levels go up. And if you're overweight, you need to drop that weight because weight releases estrogen, and that causes issues. So you got to lose the weight. Or you can talk to your doctor too about testosterone injections.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that. I mean, as we bring our conversation to a close, ending on a high note, I suppose, my take from our conversation and from reading your book is that, yeah, it's super complicated looking at all these genes and then the possible interactions between them. And to further complicate it, even if you don't have the gene, your lifestyle could dirty it and you could still have the effects. So very complicated. But I think the good news there is that I found it really interesting. It was like stress, sleep, eat green foods. Like it was and it was repeated in each section, the lifestyle pieces before everything. So share with us, what can we do? Even if there's listeners right now that feel like, oh my gosh, this is hopeless. Maybe they know they have some of these issues already because they've already done the 23andMe test. How do we clean up our genes?
One step at a time. People will pick up the book Dirty Genes and they'll read the whole thing. It's like, yeah, I read Dirty Genes. And I was like, oh, that's great. You got to implement. And it's like, well, I don't know where to start. And so if you do pick up the book Dirty Genes and you read it, great. Then I want you to pick up the book again, start over. And as you're reading it, you can skim it faster this time. Or you can skip to a section that resonated with you and you read something that says, try going to bed 15 minutes earlier because that's when you get your deep sleep. Put the book down. You work on that. That's it. Just work on that. You got it. You just have to execute. You got to implement. And in fact, I was going to put the acknowledgement for the book was, I was going to dedicate the book to the reader who implements. Because it's not easy reading a book like Dirty Genes because you read it all and you're like, now what? So you just have to pick something. And it might be easier if you go to drbenlynch.com and there's an opt-in there where it's 26 steps to clean genes. And it's a free download and every letter is the alphabet A, B, C, D, and so on. And every one is typically one word with a brief paragraph at the end of it. I wanted to include this as a chapter in the book, but the publisher said, Ben, your book is already long enough. We're not putting that in there. I was like, come on. And they're like, no. So I'm giving you that chapter. And it's very, very good. A is a perfect place to start. A is avoid. Now that means whatever. It could be avoiding chemicals. It could be avoiding watching the news. It could be avoiding saying yes to when your boss comes up to you or a coworker and say, hey, can you work long hours today or Saturday or this weekend or work, and you just say, no. You got to step up and avoid things. And there's a great book too called Essentialism. What's most essential? The word priorities didn't even exist some time ago. The word priority existed. You had one priority and that's what you worked on. Priorities, you can't have multiple priorities at once. You can have one. You can have many different priorities, but you can only work at one at a time. So for me, I love the book Essentialism because he talks about cleaning out your closet like Marie Kondo. And I just went in my closet and I cleaned it out. And to me, that reduces anxiety. Clutter, mess, excess causes anxiety. So purge. Listen to Marie Kondo and start purging. That will calm your anxiety down right there.
Well, yes. The part in the book where you said that, I was looking around. I said something about because it was in that particular section, and it was like you are more prone to stress, and if your home is cluttered, it's going to get into your mind and bother you. And I'm like, are you
Hmm.
sure? How do you know? So for the listener, then we've talked about so much today. We've really given listeners so much to think about. What is kind of the one thing that you want to leave the listener with today?
I would I would say I've been researching this for a long time, and I do wish that I researched this prior to my boys being born. Sorry, kid. They are doing really well, knock on wood, despite not being optimal in terms of what could have been done during their pregnancy. But the research I've done has been significant. And when I looked up the word to define a prenatal vitamin, see if there's FDA requirements or restrictions or governance about what one must put in a prenatal vitamin in order to label it a prenatal vitamin. What do you think the standards were, Lisa?
Oh, I don't even want to hazard a guess. It needs
Okay,
to
I mean,
have like vitamin, it needs to have folate or folic acid, probably.
yeah, so I'll give you an example. So infant formulas, full on, like every ingredient's got to be within this range for infant formula. It's got this much protein, this much fat, this much, so on, this much folate for infant formula. Hugely controlled. Prenatals, nothing.
Oh, like not even a.
Nothing.
So anything could be labeled as.
Anything could be labeled a prenatal vitamin.
Oh, jeez.
Anything.
That's scary.
And so women go to the store to look for a prenatal vitamin, and there's a number of things at play. First, they hear folic acid. I got to do that. So they look for folic acid. There it is. And I don't want to take too many capsules. I need it easy. Oh, this is a gummy. Perfect. And they think they're done because it's labeled prenatal vitamin. It's got folic acid, and it says it right on the front. And you're popping that thinking you're good to go. You're not. You're not. So a good prenatal is comprehensive. It's a slew of different ingredients and the highest quality ones. And, I don't want you taking gummy prenatals. Pregnancy is not only for your baby's health, it's for your own health and your grandchildren's health. It's 3 generations. So it's that important of a 12-month period or even longer if you're breastfeeding, because breastfeeding is a very, very, very important time. So if you can, I'm gonna toot my own horn a little bit here, but optimal prenatal is the prenatal that I designed. That is tons of different, hundreds of research articles that I've read that goes about discussing why I kind of picked them, the ingredients I did. It's got the carnitine in there that you need. Men could also be taking the optimal prenatal. So if you're trying to conceive, both of you, your male half should also be taking the optimal prenatal as well. And it comes in capsules, powders, or chewables.
Mm-hmm. We'll make sure to link that. I regularly recommend your prenatals. So let me think. I feel like we've covered so much. There's always so much more to cover. Um,
One simple one too. Since choline is deficient in 90% of women, I really want women to be focusing on choline. Choline comes from eggs, it comes from meat. It's discussed in the PEMT chapter. But you can also supplement with phosphatidylcholine if you don't eat eggs or you don't eat meat because you're vegan or vegetarian. Phosphatidylcholine is typically made from sunflower oil, so you can use that. Or you could use liposomal vitamin C or liposomal products to get the phosphatidylcholine that you need. And that will support your liver, it'll support the membranes of your baby, it'll support the brain of your baby. And if you're breastfeeding, if you're having recurrent mastitis that hurts, ouch. My wife got it a lot. I wish I knew what I knew now. So she took the optimal PC or the phosphatidylcholine, her milk would have flowed right through those milk ducts, and she would not have had blocked ducts.
mm-hmm. It's so interesting about choline, how essential it is.
Massive.
And it's not in it. I mean, what you mentioned about the prenatals and not even having any type of regulations. So it's not in most prenatals at all.
Yeah, and another thing, I know we got to wrap up here, but there's so much important stuff to share. It's like I got to throw it all on you guys. The Dr. Zeisel did research using choline in pregnancy on mice, and what he found was the human equivalent of 800 milligrams of choline a day for a pregnant mouse. Her babies, little baby mice, went on their entire life without dementia or Alzheimer's, their whole life.
Wow.
So that amount of choline supported the neurotransmission, the brain formation, all that was beautiful. And less than that, or deficient, they got dementia and Alzheimer's. And we're not talking the ApoE gene defect. We're talking about choline deficiency. And if 90% of women are choline deficient, that's a problem. Optimal Prenatal has 250 milligrams of choline in it. It's already a lot of servings, so I didn't put more. But take Optimal PC or eat your eggs and get choline that way.
Yes, lots of choline. And I talk about liver a lot on the podcast. All of my clients are laughing right now.
Yeah, and if you have gallbladder issues while you're pregnant, you're choline deficient. Bam.
Oh, so much. Okay, but I should probably let you go at some point because I'm sure you have busy.
You're going to kick me out. It's like, done. You're done.
Well, I could keep going. I have but I'm going to respect your time. Thank you so much for being here. You've mentioned your website. So tell us again where we can go. Just repeat it again, as well as the opt-in that you mentioned.
Yeah, so a great place to start if you don't want to invest in a book or anything, because go to Dr. Ben Lynch, drbenlynch.com, and that opt-in there to 26 steps to clean your genes. It's a very easy read. I wish they put it in my book. They didn't, so I'm giving it to you now. And that's a great place to start. You work with the letter A and work on that, and then go to B. And then you can find Optimal Prenatal, Optimal PC, and then probiotics at seekinghealth.com. And we're constantly striving for constant improvement, and our service is great. At least we think so. A lot of customers think so. But it's a company that's near and dear to my heart because that's where all my research goes into.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the book is Dirty Genes. It's really an excellent read, really well put together, and very eye-opening in terms of this link between our genes and health conditions and everything, but also even your moods and lots of specific menstrual symptoms that we didn't even get a chance to talk about today, which is really fascinating. But I think the most important takeaway that I had was that even though the book is about our genes and there's this idea of biological determinism, you don't get that sense from the book because ultimately we can still control our destiny regardless of our genes. I wasn't trying to make that a soundbite, but it turned into a sound like one. But that's what I took away from it. And I just want to kind of leave the listener with that because it's yes, these genes can really muck up a bunch of stuff, but we still have the power to really improve our health. So thank you so much for being here and sharing that message. My pleasure. Thank you for helping Jarrett. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share it with a friend. You'll find the show notes page for today's episode over at fertilityfriday.com/302. I hope that you enjoyed today's interview with Ben. What a great conversation that we had. It was just a real treat to have an opportunity to talk about the gene aspect of it and how our genes can impact the way that we methylate nutrients, the way that we respond to different situations. And there's so many different profiles in Dirty Genes. It was really interesting. When you're reading it, there were times when I felt like I was reading a horoscope, where not only are we talking about the health issues and the hormonal challenges and the scientific information, but he was also referring to your mood and talking about certain tendencies and even how your genes could impact the way that you approach your work schedule or the way that you respond to different situations, how it can affect you, whether it makes you anxious or whether you feel chill and relaxed in certain situations, how your genes can actually play a role in that. And as I mentioned at the top of the episode and in the middle of our conversation, one of the things that really struck me was that it's not just this idea that our genes are determining everything 100%. So you can have a certain genetic mutation and not have it express because of the way that you're living your life, not have it actually act up and make a difference. And similarly, you could not have a particular gene issue, but because of the way that you're living your life, you could still have the symptoms even if you don't have that gene. And so it's interesting because it makes it very complex in a way, but it also makes it simple in a way, and it makes it really actionable. And at the end of the day, it helps to break it down. So even though we're talking about a lot of complex interactions between multiple genes, and we can really go there with the complexity, it's also very simple in a sense, because the foundational way to start addressing these issues is to really look at what we're doing, what we're eating, how we're sleeping, how we're moving, and what we're exposing ourselves to, just the very basic things that I really talk about all the time, every day in my appointments with clients, in my group program. And it's not the entire answer, but I think especially when you're charting your cycles and you can actually see how the different changes that you're making are affecting your menstrual cycle in real time, it really speaks to the power that we have to impact our own health, for the positive or for the negative. And so I'm really excited to hear what you think about today's episode. We'll be talking about it in my Fertility Friday Facebook community. So make sure to join us over there, fertilityfriday.com/community. And if you know somebody who would really benefit from today's episode, make sure to share it. So you'll find the show notes page over at fertilityfriday.com/302. And of course, I just want to thank all of you for tuning into the show, for spending some time with us today, for being a part of the Fertility Friday community. And of course, as always, until next time, be well and happy charting.